Welcome back. Jose Otero here with Per Schneider and Brian Altano. And we're talking about Metroid this week on NVC. All about it. And so our next topic is actually about Super Metroid, right? Why is Super Metroid one of the most important games ever made? We talked already about how Metroid 1 and even Metroid 2 sort of helped develop the idea of sort of an exploration-based platforming game, an action-adventure, if you will. But Super Metroid is the one that got it right and has been praised up and down ever since. And I feel like we got maybe a taste of sort of that quiet storytelling at the end of Metroid 2, which you brought up, right?
Yeah.
The end of Return of Samus, sparing the hatchling.
Yeah.
Like, there was a message there. And then when Super Metroid got a hold of those ideas, they just made that message 10 times better.
Yeah, from the very beginning, I mean, you see you see Ridley breaking into the lab and stealing the last Metroid, right? And the jarred Metroid and flying away with it. By the way, what a freaky moment, right? Like, you're exploring the space station at the very beginning, and then, like, a giant enemy pops up. That's, like, your first encounter with an enemy. You're finding all these dead bodies on the floor, which was creepy enough.
It's the first time you see like sort of human-esque or humanistic characters outside of yourself in the franchise.
Yeah.
And they're dead everywhere.
Real dead bodies, right?
Yeah.
And they're scientists. They're not soldiers or anything. And then this giant boss comes in, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't even upgraded my character. I don't even know how to play this damn game.
And the music is
and like it drives you crazy. And of course, you're taking damage the whole time. Now, the secret is you can't die, right?
Yeah.
And so it's part of the story that you're actually interacting with the cutscene, which I thought was just so cool.
Well, and then what I love is that they wisely from there. So this game picked up right after Metroid 2. You have this encounter with Ridley, who steals the hatchling. You go down to the planet Zebes once again. And what blew my mind is then they take you on a quick, unabridged tour of what you did in Metroid 1.
I know.
You start you pass by the starting area. You end up in where you fought Mother Brain. You see the smoking hole in the ground where you left Mother Brain, what's left of the jar. And you sort of backtrack through
the scanning thing.
There was a scanning thing. There were little changes here and there because as you slowly found out, the world just got 10 times bigger.
Yeah.
Or at least it felt that way in Super Metroid.
You just forgot to open some doors. And, I mean, obviously time passed. But that was what made that game so magical for me. Like, the first moment, like, Ridley comes in and it starts with an eye, right? The eye just fades in and it's so creepy. But then when you go down to the planet, first of all, I'm a sucker for rain in video games.
Yeah.
I'm playing Horizon 2 right now, Forza on the Xbox, and the rain effects and everything just make me really happy.
It's because it doesn't rain in San Francisco.
No, I grew up in Germany where it always rains, and now we live in California.
Isn't that weird how you grow to miss thunderstorms?
I love thunderstorms.
Me too.
Anyway, so it's got this awesome atmosphere, which was, to me, exactly like the beginning of Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't yet know what to do. You're not, like, running around killing things. You're just kind of exploring something and trying to get a feel for the world. And it's so smart, right? Like, it teaches you the game mechanics. For those who played the original game, you get a tour of the last game. But just the sound of the rain and, like, your spaceship landing there, and you going, like, you're like, all right, I can go to the left, I can go back and go back, I can go back into my spaceship. Just this kind of freedom to me was mind-boggling.
Well, and it's sort of from the design standpoint, where you mentioned that the first game felt very desolate.
Yeah.
The sound design became very ambient in Super Metroid.
Yeah.
It became
It's
more
excellent.
about the little, effects and the little things.
That was the power of the Super Nintendo, like it was.
Oh,
it had some incredibly capable sound chips.
So this was Sakamoto, right? Sakamoto
gets a
Super
lot of the
Metroid.
credit for this game. He is one of the folks that worked on it.
Yep.
And he, if you don't know Sakamoto's work, Yoshio Sakamoto also works on the WarioWare series. He actually has a very diverse palette of games. He's the Tomodachi Life dude. He is the WarioWare dude. And he is also, coincidentally enough, the Metroid dude. Oh, and the Rhythm Heaven guy also.
Yeah.
He also handles that series too. Very different games across the board.
Yeah, it's what I really loved about Super Metroid was the sound design was so detailed and the environments were so they felt gross. Just wet
and they made farty noises
gross.
too.
Yeah, and it's just like things just
what the fart
oozed
sounds
and,
like?
Yeah, well, no,
things
like farty
oozed and
noises.
dripped, and you would walk into a room and you'd be like, oh, like you'd fight an enemy or a boss, and you'd be like, this is just gross looking. Whereas everything in the original NES Metroid, it was all very blocky, it was all very clean. You could tell that things were kind of nasty, like little slime balls would scroll around with eyeballs on them and stuff like that. But Super Metroid was just like moss grew on things. There was dew, things would drip and pop, and it just felt gross.
And then it had these cool mechanisms too, right? What,
Yeah.
Like you're running forward and the door closes. You're like, what? And you try it like 50 times. I'm going to beat this door. Of course, you have to come back later when you can run fast. But like just that kind of experimentation, which in a modern game would be so frustrating if we're stuck in an area. This game basically said, hey, you can try and get past it.
Yeah.
But there are all these other things you can do at the same time. And I really appreciated that. But this game also had like two of my favorite things in the series. One was the glass pipe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which I thought was awesome, right? Like you run through this glass pipe so many times on your way to the different areas, and then at one point you're like, what if I put a power bomb here? And like it blows it up.
Yeah.
What? It blew up the glass pipe.
Yeah.
And you go in the water. That is freaking amazing. I thought
yeah.
that was so cool.
No, it is very cool.
I think it did a fantastic job of making Samus even more of a badass too.
Yep.
Because first of all, it was the shoulder buttons helped a lot, like being able to shoot diagonally and stuff.
Yep.
All of a sudden, I mean, you shot very straightforward and up and down in the older Metroids, but all of a sudden you were like, man, she felt like a bulkier character. She looked stronger. Her weapon upgrade system, like going into the menu and looking at that kind of stuff, like it was just really cool the way they teched it all out.
When they introduced things like the grapple beam, right?
Yep.
They expanded sort of her palette of what she could do with this game, which was dope. They even had moves that the game somehow taught you itself just by demonstration. You'd run into the space animals and you'd see them zigzag off the walls, and you're like, what are you
That was
trying to say
hard.
to me? And it was really hard to pull
Yeah.
off, but once you learned how to do it and you learned the timing, or I don't know how I eventually found out. I was kind of bummed because this game came out in 1994 and we were dirt poor, so I didn't get to buy it and play it until I was much older. I think right before Corruption came out on Wii. And I'm kind of glad I didn't play it until I was older because I appreciated it 10 times more, I feel. Like I was able to kind of absorb a lot more of what the game wanted from me than if I would have played it when I was like 14 or whatever.
I played it right when it came out. Obviously, I wasn't
me
14.
too.
But like that moment where you see those guys do the wall jumps, and you're like, what are you trying? Oh, you're trying to tell me I can wall jump too. I can't. Like you try it over and over. You're like, wait, no, maybe I can. And then like you keep on working on it until you think you got it, right? But like to be able to communicate that through just, visuals and no description. Today it would just be like pop up, press ER twice, right? Like it would bring up some sort of
Oh, are you kidding me? Nowadays you'd have 1 million lives. You'd be able to buy the ending. Like, it's everything's so different now.
And then the other thing that I really loved, and this I feel like inspired the Metroid Prime series, was the first visor, right? The X-ray scope in that game. Like you would discover these secrets, and they're awesome, and we're familiar with those secrets from other games, right? Where something looks like a wall and you walk through, it's like the hidden waterfall entrance.
Yeah.
In this game, you get this visor, and you can actually scan the walls, and you can find those secrets.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool when I first used it. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! I'm gonna go through every room ever and scan everything.
And that's kind of what the whole power-up upgrade system kind of did to you, right? The minute you'd get something, you'd be like, now I know where I can use this, right? And that's where the aha moments, the epiphanies would happen. One thing you haven't mentioned, though, the bosses, man. Bosses, the boss sprites, the boss characters, all the things you fought. Huge, like multiple parts. They were intimidating. One of them had 2 screens. Was it Kraid?
Yeah, Kraid was gigantic.
You have to fight Kraid again, and you
was
have
fat.
to actually get all the way up to a second screen, like top floor, to fight him. And it was so well done.
Yeah, it's such a remarkable game. It's definitely in my top 5 games of all time. It's just such a great game. The one thing that it kind of ruined for me is that I don't think there were ever, well, maybe in Metroid Prime because of the morph ball stuff they did, but there weren't many things in future games where you were like, oh, I wonder what that's for. Like, I feel like the earlier games kind of primed you for, a grapple hook here, I need this beam to open this door, right? Like it kind of gave you that language. And the Zelda franchise, we have the same issue where like you kind of know you're going to get a grapple beam, a grapple hook or
Boomerang,
hook shot
Yeah.
when you see a target like that. And I wish like we just reset it and give us completely new items at one point.
The whole process of discovery is special.
Yep.
All right, and then, we should definitely talk a little bit about that ending. One of the greatest endings of all time, right? Because the tables were turned. You end up in a boss fight with, if you haven't beat this game, I apologize, you've had time. But you should check it out. Basically, you fight Mother Brain again. Mm-hmm. She turns into gigantic Mother Brain in front of you.
She
and
walks.
And then the last Metroid, which almost killed you a little while earlier, right? In the middle of a hallway, it attaches to you, it attacks you. It's ginormous now. It looks like a Super Metroid. Wow, I didn't even realize that. Then it comes to save you.
It gives you the energy.
Yeah, it dies, but in dying gives you the energy to kill Mother Brain with like a hypernova super rainbow beam or whatever.
Yep.
And again, the simplest storytelling mechanics to make you feel like I'm going to kick your butt, right? Like the moment Metroid comes in, you're like, holy crap, it saved me, right? Like you totally understand what happened in the games before and like this payoff of rescuing this dangerous creature. Then you're pissed off because Metroid is dead and you're like, I'm going to take down Mother Brain. The simplest storytelling mechanics create this emotional response and really like made the game so enjoyable.
Yeah, no,
So
I agree.
good.